Today, I and my group members will talk about, do deterrence strategies change based on the domain? Is there still a role for arms control in the 21st century? So here's a video from Muhammad Harith. Check it out.
The most striking result of deterrence in the 21st century was the need for additional research in the area described above. Even with more than 3 dozen of the most knowledgeable and experienced practitioners and scholars from the United States and Great Britain, many questions were left unanswered. In fact, the conference may have generated more questions than solutions. As one of the principals pointed out in his discussion of the conference finding, nuclear deterrent behavior seems significantly different from the other type of deterrent behavior. He then asked, how should we refine the system to represent what we want? In the asking question, the speaker struck at the heart of the matter. In addition, perhaps inadvertently, he illustrated the work yet to be done. Nevertheless, the success of future efforts may hinge on the ability of the United States and its allies to develop clear national strategies that offer an enduring course of action. When it was suggested that neither the United States nor the United Kingdom does strategy anymore, many participants agreed. Such a state of affairs does not bode well for the future of deterrence. Conference sponsors and attendees alike left with a clear understanding that non-state actors extended deterrence and cyberspace offer until soil for further research. There is little doubt, however, that this will not be the last conference of its kind, as the United States and its allies continue to seek solutions for the most pressing problem of national security.
We already heard that deterrent resulting the need of additional research in some area. It's not all about deterrence, so I want you to focus on what Muhammad Tua will say about it.
Deterrence has long been a cornerstone of interaction among states. After the Cold War, deterrent thinking came to mean nuclear deterrent. Post-Cold War states faced new threats that were perceived to be less important. This includes state failure, mass migration of population, drugs, and small arms of human trafficking. Economic sensation and incentive have exerted little effect toward solving this post-Cold War challenge. State relied on a military invention to cope with an increasingly complex set of challenges and crises. The conference exceeds our exception, as reader will find. We seek to bring together some of the best thinkers of deterrence to examine how to reinvigorate this essential tool for today's policy community. The AFRI Security Conference was a successful, and then the organizers say the attendance and planning staff took the topic seriously. The conference has the potential to inform policymakers on how to cope with security challenges. They told, we are grateful to the participants and to those who contribute to the success of the endeavor.
We have Muhammad Luqman who are going to discuss about armed rules control.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Muhammad Makim bin Muhammad. My metric number is 2190240. Today I'm going to talk about arms rule control. First of all, is arms control still a national security priority? Nuclear arms matter have to be a priority for any presidents in the nuclear age, because nuclear weapons represent one of the only existential threats to human race. And so if you think about it, the bomb and its various dangers has been something that could affect us in many ways. We can even necessarily foresee whether a terrorist strike, a look loose nuclear weapon getting into the wrong hands, probably not a United States, Russia outright intention nuclear war, but perhaps other kinds of conflict in other parts of the world growing into a nuclear conflict. Whether you can to reduce the danger is important if it's slow, indirect and frustrating in many of the dynamics that are associated with that. Next, is there any threat of future nuclear testing? The United States hasn't tested nuclear weapons now in 20 years. Other established power haven't tested in the last 16, so this is moratorium that's now been going on for quite a while. The last country has tested was North Korea in 2009. It's not an official nuclear power. India and Pakistan tested back in 1998, so we have had some tests since China and France, I believe, were the last of the big five to test. So in a sense, we have moratorium already, and that's useful. However, this is sort of no and unstable equilibrium in the sense that there is no binding treaty regime because the United States and China would need to ratify for list including United States. So we are seeing not any treaty related restraint but an unofficial moratorium that's always fragile, and I think it's been very helpful to have a strong norm established against nuclear testing, so it would be nice to formalize it and make it more permanent. It would also be a way to reassure ourselves that China is not going to modernize its nuclear arsenal as it thinks about competing with United States more in other domain of military capability.
It's a ton of information we heard about arm control, especially nuclear from Luqman. Last but not least, we have Muhammad Daniel that will continue explaining the role for arms control in the 21st century.
If the United States and Russia continue to reduce arms, could other countries follow? I think it's very possible in the next 5 to 10 years are going to be fascinating in this regard, extremely important. Is this one the reason why I really call the book The Opportunity I Had? Say there are two big concepts behind that. The title, at least from my perspective, one is in the US-Russia process bringing in tactical and surplus warhead into the accounting schema and the way we never have before. So the limit on a future treaty would apply to all these kinds of weapons as well as to the traditional long range or strategic warheads. That's one way in which we see an opportunity. The other way is once you get that done, and maybe along with that same process, maybe in simultaneous set of action, you could start to see other nuclear powers make the first baby step towards getting involved in process as well, up until now they have had the unstable reply. Everybody else has far fewer weapons than rush in the United States by a factor of 20 or 30 or 40. Why should they be involved in any kind of an arms reduction process that they somewhat correctly blame us for creating in the first place? It's this problem that Moscow and Washington need to solve largely on their own, but as we start to get down to levels of 1,000 long-range warhead on a site, 2,500 total warhead, 2,002, 2,500 for either Russia or the US, it starts to be a situation where other powers might resist. Is is nuclear free world possible? I think you need to learn a lot about how the arms control mechanics work. You also need for the world to stabilize a bit more the great power is, especially they are getting along pretty well, but the United States and China still have some issue between them, like the spirit status of Taiwan, and there are too many big issues and problems in that place like Korea and Middle East, where I think we have to worry that our potential adversaries were cheating. If there were any kind of treaty regime now, you can make verification very good, but you may or may not be able to make it perfect. And so you have got to think through a lot of mechanics of whether you can really go to this world, while you have got 5 to 6 lingering big problem country out there in tense part of the world, and you have got to think through how you might rebuild an arsenal at least for temporary purpose if you ever need it, because somebody else violates our treaty. So there's a lot to think about, and I think a lot of things need to improve in terms of international politics, in terms of scientific method of verification before we can really answer the question. I think, however, that making this is a goal, and a real goal is actually useful, because proliferation ultimately is a bigger danger than great power war in this 21st century, in my judgment. And we need to therefore treat every tool possible against proliferation. That's all for me. Thank you for watching.